So Thursday Night Football did not disappoint, and we might have a new Super Bowl favorite. However, it featured some very devastating injuries. One injury could even sadly spell the end of an awesome player's career, though I certainly hope not, and that is far from the only injuries worth keeping eyes on around the league as injury reports begin piling up. Well, in today's video, I'll dive into all that as well as how that can affect some of these Week 2 matchups and intriguing storylines right after. Alright, so the Packers and Commanders duked it out last night on Thursday Night Football, and while it may have only been a 9-point game in the end, it felt like it was another one that the Packers dominated from the opening snap. Last week, they held Detroit to 2.1 yards per carry, and this week, they limited the Commanders to just 2.7. Jayden Daniels was under duress all game long. The Packers, for example, blitzed him 12 times, forcing 7 pressures and 2 sacks on those blitzes. Micah Parsons played limited snaps again, but he still led both teams in pressures, QB hits, and hurries on the night. The secondary was making plays too. Keyshawn Nixon had 5 PBUs, which was the most of any player in a single game since the start of last season. Washington scrounged together some yards and a score in garbage time, but just like last week, this felt like another dominant performance from the defense. And that's not even to mention the Packers offense humming as well, 135 yards on the ground, but they were ripping off some big chunks through the air, especially in the first half. Jordan Love averaged 14.5 air yards per attempt, more than a yard higher than his previous career high. All in all, he finished the game with 292 yards and a couple of touchdowns as the Packers got the dub 27-18. In 2 weeks, they've already beaten 2 of the best NFC teams from last season, and I can't freaking wait until week 4 when they head to Dallas for Micah Parsons' return to Jerry World. The Packers, it's early, yes, but they are looking like one of the favorites for the NFC. In fact, right now, if I had to put money on it, I'm going Packers, Eagles, and the NFC Championship. I will say there were some really unfortunate injuries last night for both teams. In this one, though, the Packers lost wide receiver Jayden Reed to a broken collarbone, and they placed him on IR immediately, meaning he'll have to miss at least the next 4 games, but it's going to be longer. Ian Rappaport called it a 6 to 8 week injury, which would have him back sometime in November. Thankfully, the Packers have an abundance of receivers because they're also without Christian Watson, who's still working back from an ACL tear last season. Romeo Doubs, Dontavian Wicks, and the rookie Matthew Golden figure to dominate the snaps for now, with the other rookie, Savion Williams, working in also. Plus, their tight end, Tucker Kraft, has been on a tear to start the season, and he went off for 6 catches and a career-high 124 yards to go along with the touchdown last night. It's also worth keeping an eye on their O-line because their starting right tackle, Zach Tom, was ruled out of last night's game with an oblique injury, while their starting left guard was out with an ankle. The Commanders had a few players exit with soft tissue injuries last night, but sadly there were 2 major ones worth talking about. Defensive end Deatrich Wise was carted off the field last night, and today we learned that he suffered a season-ending quad injury, a tough blow for Wise, who just signed with the Commanders after playing 8 seasons in New England. But most of the attention is on running back Austin Ekeler, who sadly tore his Achilles in the 4th quarter. It was a sad video to watch. You could tell immediately that it was his Achilles, and it's already been confirmed. That, combined with the fact that he's 30 years old, makes this seem like it could be the end of his NFL career. Obviously not wishing for that, but he's a free agent after this season. And I'm not sure how many teams are going to want to take a chance on what'll be a 31-year-old running back coming off of a season-ending Achilles injury. Maybe it happens, and if it does, I'll be rooting for him all along the way. Washington is now without both their RB1 and RB2 from last season because they traded away Brian Robinson Jr. before the season started. That means that now the legend of Bill Krosky Merritt will only continue to grow as the 7th-round rookie is set to get the majority of the touches in that backfield. But let's keep it moving because we've got more injury news to get into ahead of these Week 2 matchups. Bills defensive tackle Ed Oliver surprisingly popped up on the injury report yesterday with an ankle after fully practicing the day before. Well, apparently he got stepped on during practice, and it was bad enough that he had to be in a walking boot, at least for the moment here. Sean McDermott already ruled him out for Sunday's game against the Jets, and I wouldn't be surprised if he misses Week 3 as well because they play on Thursday Night Football, so obviously a very quick turnaround. Oliver is a key cog along that D-line. He started for them since 2019, and he was the one who had that forced fumble on Derrick Henry week 1 that allowed them to come back and win that exciting game. So that's a big loss for them, just like Taylor Decker would be for the Lions if he can't go Sunday. No practice for him again today, which is now the 3rd day in a row that he's been a DNP with a shoulder injury. Decker told Dan Campbell that he wants to play, though Campbell said he wants to manage his health for the long-term season. So we'll see about his status for Sunday, but if he can't go or isn't 100%, that's yet another red flag along this Detroit O-line that graded 27th in run blocking last week, according to PFF. They already lost Frank Ragnow and Kevin Zeitler over the offseason, so losing another veteran in Decker would be quite the challenge to overcome. They've got another divisional game this week against the Bears with former offensive coordinator Ben Johnson coming to town, so that should be a pretty exciting matchup, and it's not going to be easy, so keep your eye on Decker's status ahead of that one. A guy who's already been ruled out for week 2 is Cowboys cornerback DaRon Bland. On Monday, he injured his foot during practice, and the report was that he could miss a couple of weeks because of it. Initially, there was some panic as Bland missed 7 games with a foot injury last year, but that was to his left foot, whereas this injury is to his right. Hopefully, he doesn't have to miss any more time than the expected 2 weeks because Dallas needs him in that secondary. It's why they just gave him a 4-year, $92 million extension before the start of the season. Trayvon Diggs has been ramping up after coming back from offseason knee surgery. Diggs played just 27 snaps against the Eagles, while DaRon Bland and Kaiir Elam played 63. But now Diggs is likely going to need to play a lot more, at least in the coming weeks. The good news for them and bad news for the Giants is that Andrew Thomas, the Giants starting left tackle, is doubtful due to his foot injury. Thomas didn't play in their season opener last week either, and while there was some optimism he could play this week, it looks like he'll be aiming to return for their game against the Chiefs in week 3. Then, for an update on Brock Purdy, we knew that he was dealing with a toe injury, but yesterday Ian Rappaport revealed that it's a turf toe variant, and he's expected to miss 2 to 5 weeks. He's already been ruled out for this Sunday's game against the Saints and will likely be out for week 3 versus the Cardinals as well. Add that to George Kittle missing at least 4 weeks while on injured reserve with his hamstring injury, and these boys might be cooked. For now, Mac Jones is the QB1, which is who some Niners fans wanted all along the year that they traded up for Trey Lance in the first place. Times are a little different now, though, to say the least, but we'll see if Mac can keep them afloat until Purdy makes his return. They did work out the veteran Mike White earlier this week, for what it's worth, with Kyle Shanahan saying they'd like to add another veteran QB while Purdy is out because there's a chance he could miss up to over a month. Some guys that could be returning somewhat soon here is going to be Chris Godwin and Tristan Wirfs for the Bucs. Both of them returned to practice in limited fashion yesterday after missing all of training camp. Wirfs with a knee and Godwin with that ankle injury. They both came off the PUP list before the start of the season, which is a great sign in their rehabs. And Todd Bowles surprisingly said yesterday that they could be back as soon as Monday night's game against the Texans. But I don't know about that because Ian Rappaport said the Bucs are hopeful for a week 5 return for Godwin. Then Greg Auman, who covers the Bucs for Fox Sports, said that the goal for Wirfs is also a week 5 return. So I think it's just a little bit of gamesmanship there from Todd Bowles, but nonetheless, it's good to see those guys back out there at practice. They're starting right tackle Luke Goedeke, a man who's fresh off a new 4-year extension, was not out there at practice for the 2nd day in a row. That's not always a great sign here as he's working through a foot injury. They may have to shuffle around that line a bit this week, which is not ideal as they're going up against Danielle Hunter and Will Anderson. So good luck with that one, Baker Mayfield. The Colts should also have their hands full this week as they'll be without both of their starting corners, Jalen Jones and Charvarius Ward. Jones has a hamstring injury and Ward suffered a concussion. So with them out, look for Courtland Sutton to potentially have a big day, whatever his higher or lower is on Underdog. Spam the higher is what I would do. I think the Broncos should get the win over the Colts here. I know Danny Dimes had a great outing in week 1, but there's a big difference between the Dolphins defense and the Broncos. Now, speaking of Underdog, before I get into the rest of this video, I did want to share with you 3 of my favorite picks for this week's games. Obviously, if you want to roll with something Courtland Sutton related, since I just talked about that, definitely do that. But here's 3 others that I really did like for this week. They have a brand new offer for new customers right now as well. Play just $5 and get $50 in bonus funds when you sign up using my code CBTH. But as for my picks, I'm going with Josh Allen's higher on 1.5 passing touchdowns. He scored 2 through the air last week and 2 touchdowns in both games against the Jets in 2024. Plus, Aaron Rodgers just scored 4 touchdowns against them last week. Then I'm taking the lower on Tyreek Hill's 66.5 receiving yards. Tyreek has hit that mark just once in his last 5 games going back to last year, including last week when they were getting blown out and were forced to throw nearly every play. I don't love the vibe around Miami right now either, so I'm fading Tyreek here. However, I am taking the higher on Bijan Robinson's 25.5 receiving yards. Bijan had 100 yards through the air last week, and even without his 50-yard touchdown catch, he still would have cleared this total with ease. Plus, they're playing the Vikings, who will be without starting linebacker Blake Cashman, and that could open up some yak opportunities once again for the young star running back. I made this a flexed entry as well, so hitting 2 out of the 3 is still a win, but all 3 will get you up to 3x on your money. Of course, you don't have to flex those, and the winnings are higher, and on pick'ems this season, you can choose higher or lower on your favorite player stats like this to win up to 1,000x on your money. So hop on Underdog today and play $5 to get $50 in bonus funds when you sign up using my code CBTH. All right, next up, the Eagles won't have tight end Dallas Goedert with the Chiefs as he's been ruled out with a knee sprain. That's somewhat significant as he was Hurts's favorite target last week against Dallas. They've got plenty of other weapons on that offense though, so I think they should be fine here. I'm a bit more concerned about Kansas City's offense with Xavier Worthy's status being in question after dislocating his shoulder in Brazil, and then obviously Rashee Rice is suspended. Now, Worthy did practice a couple days in a row with a brace and some padding on his shoulder, so there could be a chance he plays. Andy Reid called it a slim chance, and Worthy's officially listed as doubtful to play, so I really don't think so. I'm also looking forward to the Sunday night matchup between the Vikings and Falcons. It's a rematch of the 2024 College Football Championship with J.J. McCarthy and Michael Penix going head-to-head. The Falcons lost after Younghoe Koo missed a 44-yard field goal to send it to overtime against Tampa, while the Vikings are coming off that pretty exciting fourth-quarter comeback win over Chicago. Pretty wild that J.J. McCarthy's first 2 NFL starts are coming in primetime, but I'm excited to see how he does in his home debut. Some unfortunate news for the Vikings, though. Their starting middle linebacker Blake Cashman was placed on IR with a hamstring injury, and that's a big loss as he wears the green dot, calls the plays for that defense. On top of that, cornerback Jeff Okudah and edge rusher Andrew Van Ginkel were also ruled out with concussions. Left tackle Christian Darrisaw is nearing his return from an ACL tear last season, but he was also ruled out for Sunday night. For Atlanta, both Drake London and Darnell Mooney are officially in, which is good news. They're both dealing with shoulder injuries. So Michael Penix will have 2 of his top targets suiting up, which will be key against this banged up Vikings defense. There's a ton of division rivalry games that I'll be keeping my eye on this weekend as well. You've got the Giants and Cowboys with most of America probably pulling for New York in that one. Then there's the Bears and Lions, as I mentioned earlier. Can Ben Johnson get his first win as a head coach against his former team? It's going to be a fun one. The Patriots and Dolphins are playing in an AFC East showdown, as are the Bills and Jets, which is the far more interesting game of the two for sure. The Ravens are probably going to smoke the Browns, although anything can happen because they lost to them last year despite being nearly 10-point favorites. I think the Chargers and Raiders game has the potential to be one of the best of the week, though. Maybe. A big thing to watch for Vegas is, will tight end Brock Bowers actually be playing? He's dealing with a knee issue that caused him to leave the game last week early as he was going nuclear. So if he can't go, the Chargers should probably win that one. Regardless, both teams are 1-0, plus we get to see the return of the bitter rivalry between Jim Harbaugh and Pete Carroll. They do not like each other, and that goes back to their college coaching days at USC and Stanford. Then, of course, when Harbaugh was with the Niners and Pete was with the Seahawks. Well, they're back in the same division again, which is great entertainment for all of us. For what it's worth, whoever wins this game will technically be atop the AFC West, because even if the Broncos win, whoever wins this game will have a better division record for the time being. It's way too early to even be thinking about division winners, but I will say the AFC West is going to be a gauntlet this year. The Chiefs are technically last right now, and if they can't overcome the Eagles week 2, they are going to be playing from behind and will be 0-2 for the first time ever since 2014. All that to say, there's a lot of interesting games to keep eyes on for this week, but let me know in the comments down below some of the favorite games you're going to be wanting to watch and maybe some of your favorite picks, and I might tail them for this week. And with that, I'll see y'all next time.